Spellbound, Chapter 26. When we reached the car, Sean's driver was there with two vehicles. "That's for you and Cassandra," Sean said, pointing at an older Motel BMW. "Discreet enough in L.A. Lucas and I have a meeting with Granddad, so I thought you two would want to head off on your own." "Just point us in the right direction," I said. "I take it we'll be dodging NAS security?" He shook his head. "There's no official investigation to dodge. Launching one would suggest our grandfather has some doubts regarding who took the boy. He needs to hold off until Lucas denies Benicio's involvement. Then he'll launch me to prove it. Until then, he has simply secured the crime scene." "Don't you love politics?" I said. "Quite," Cassandra said. "I enjoy watching motels chase their petty distractions desperately and foolishly bent on convincing themselves that their actions will have meaning after their flesh has dried to dust." "I wasn't asking you." I turned to Sean. "So if they secure the scene, can't I get in?" "You can. I've made arrangements. You'll also find a folder in the car with all the details so far. Call me if you have any questions." He turned to Troy. "Are you staying with Lucas or guarding Savannah?" "My orders says Lucas," Troy replied. In this case, my orders are right. While Savannah could use the shadow, mine is too large for an obstructive investigation. Miss Dutron will be playing the role of bodyguard today. Vamps may not have superpowers, but they make good shields and excellent cannon fodder." "Thank you," Cassandra said. Troy grinned. "Any time, ma'am." I drove while Cassandra read the file. That plan lasted as far as the gate before I pulled over, handed her the keys, and grabbed the pages. "I need the 6 o'clock news version," I said as we switched seats. "Not the CNN commentary. How dull." "Yup," I read aloud as she drove. "Each cabal has a resident clairvoyant. It's a rare but invaluable power. Clairvoyants can't actually see the future, but they have the power of remote viewing. They can see the world through the eyes of their target. The best can also read a target's emotions and combine that with the remote viewing to predict actions. The catch? By the time a clairvoyant is that good, he or she is well on the road to madness. The human brain isn't equipped to deal with that level of stimulation. Your average clairvoyant family produces only just one member but powers every few generations, which explains why cabals employ only one of each. Add in the fact that working for a cabal substantially increases the use of one's powers, speeding them faster toward madness, and you can see why getting even one isn't easy. Cabals either have to kidnap them or establish a relationship with a clairvoyant family. The boy Lawson had been placed with the great niece of the Nats clairvoyant. She was married to a Nats half-demon employee, and they had a child of their own, a few years older than Lawson. It was as close to a safe and normal family as they could provide for the kid. I suspected Sean was the one behind the arrangement. So Lawson lived his semi-normal life with his semi-normal family in a cute little bungalow, a fortified bungalow, with trained security officers for neighbors on either side, and a bulletproof minivan to drive him to mom and taught classes at the gym. So what had happened? No one knew. The guards had changed shifts at 7. The day team went to their homes on either side and had a normal night, reporting no disturbances. The night shift was supposed to call in to headquarters at midnight. At 1, when it was clear no update was coming, the security command center called, they paged, they texted, then they woke up the guards living on either side and sent them to the house. It was empty. No sign of a struggle, no sign of a security breach, no sign of the night guards, the family, or the two specially trained dogs. No sign of Lawson. I pulled up to the gated drive It didn't look like a security gate, just part of a tall, ornamental fence. A small sign politely warned there were dogs loose on the premises, so visitors would need to buzz to be admitted. I buzzed and gave my name. The gates opened, then closed behind our car as a man walked out from a guard post disguised as a garden shed. I recognized him as Davis, one of Sean's personal guards. Like Troy, Davis is loyal to his boss, not the cabal, meaning he could be trusted. Hey, Davis, I said as I got out the car. Hello, Miss Nass. He knew my name was Levine, but to him, this was a mark of respect for my brother, an acknowledgement of our shared parentage. He greeted Cassandra warily, and as he led us toward the house, he stayed on my other side, as far away from her as he could get. She ignored it. She always does. First question I said as we walked. Video footage? Nothing. So someone turned off the feed. No, there's footage, but it doesn't show anything. Just a regular evening at the Dow house. The night guards arrive at 6:45. The day guards leave at 7:15. Mrs. Dahl brings the dogs in at 9. At 11, the lights go out and the night guards move from their posts out here to inside. Just before midnight, one comes out with the dogs. They circle the property. They go in. Then nothing until the day guards come back at 2 to see what was going on. Could the tape have been tampered with? Maybe. It looks clean, but it's been sent to our techs for analysis. What about interior tapes? I asked as he unlocked the side door. There aren't any. The Dolls had certain conditions for taking Lawson. They wanted to give him the most normal life possible, while having a normal life themselves. We stepped into the house. It was pleasantly cool and eerily silent. Just inside the door was a mat with 2 sets of rubber boots, one tiny pair in a firefighter design, and a larger pair of purple ones dotted with daisies. Beside them were 2 dog bowls with tricks and treats, hand printed on them in childish strokes. You said the guard took the dogs out at midnight. Does the tape show him returning? No, but the routine was to exit the front door and into the rear. The video isn't as clear around back. Better lighting would shine right into the kids' bedrooms. The entry alarm trigger, though, would suggest that he came back in. No, it just means someone opened the door going in or out. Let's see the backyard. The yard backed into an estate owned by Nass VP, one of Thomas's nephews, I think, which would make him my second cousin or something. Knocking on the door and introducing myself would be kind of fun. First, though, I needed to get past the patrolling armed guards, and they didn't look very friendly. The point was that the Dow house was well protected on all sides. If something had happened to the guards and dogs, it happened in the middle of that night darkened yard and stayed there. Blood, Cassandra said as we walked through the Dow yard. I smell blood. Well, that's your specialty, so put your nose to the ground and sniff it out. She ignored me. In the middle of the yard, she closed her eyes and slowly turned. When she had the direction, she walked to a massive oak tree and bent under its spreading branches. There's blood here, she said, soaked into the ground. She pointed to a small patch in the shade. Even up close, the damp grass only looked mold-covered, dew-covered, a spot that hadn't been in the sun yet. But when I touched it, my fingers came away red. Why would there be fresh blood? I said. Cassandra looked up. I followed her gaze. There, stretched across 2 thick branches, was a man's body. Another man was draped over a higher limb. Higher still, a dark form stuffed in a fork looked like a dog with another one above it. Shit, I said. David seconded my curse and said, why the heck would they stuff them in a tree? Because they couldn't get them over the fence without being seen. How did the killer get over it? The house is guarded against teleporting half-demons, right? Of course. And the yard? No. It's too big an area and too complicated to maintain. When the children are out, there's always a guard right there, so he trailed off. that keeps someone from teleporting in and hurting the children during the day, but not coming in and killing the guards at night. Doesn't explain how the family got out, though. Unless they didn't get out, Cassandra murmured. We looked at the house. Davis jogged toward it. We followed. The house was a single floor, maybe 2,000 feet square, not big enough to hide a family or the bodies of a family, especially not when we had the blueprints which showed every room. Cassandra didn't pick up the smell of blood, which was a relief. She kept returning to the master bedroom, though. Finally, she said, someone's here. When Dave was found, I explained that vampires have a sixth sense for detecting the living. The problem with ignoring certain races is that you don't understand their powers. Cassandra crouched and pointed at the floor. Under there. David shook his head. There's no basement. Not even a storage space. Well, either you have a compartment under this floor containing a living person, or the property is infested by giant moles. Let's start moving furniture, I said. We found the trap door under the area rug. It was locked from the inside. As I examined it, David studied the blueprints as though, if he looked hard enough, a subterranean room would suddenly appear. This isn't supposed to be here, he said, finally. I think that's the point. I leaned back. You're in Angus, right? Can a little fire help here, or do we need a crowbar? He concentrated on the hinges. Not being as usual like Adam, he couldn't disinterrogate them. But with a combination of heat and brute strength, he finally wrenched the door from its hinges. When I made a move to go down, Cassandra waved me back. I'm the shield, as I recall, she said. I'll go first. What's Mr. Dell's power? I asked David. He's a tempest. In other words, a storm half-demon. Not terribly lethal in a tight place. I eased back and let Cassandra descend. As she disappeared into the darkness, there were no shouts or screams or gunshots, just the sound of someone swiveling away from her. When I started down, Cassandra lifted a hand to stop me and whispered, It's a child. For a moment we heard her say, You must be Gabrielle, the doll's daughter. I was surprised. Cass remembered the name. I'm Cassandra. We've been looking for you. A sniffle. Cassandra kept talking to a little girl, her faint French lilt coming stronger, making her voice soothing, musical. She's good with kids, David sounded shocked. It's the only way she can get them to open their windows and invite her in. His look said he didn't find that funny. At least he didn't take me seriously. I've met supernaturals who would. Cassandra has a patience with children she can't find for adults. I think she enjoys their lack of pretense. They amuse her. Well, we all amuse her, but children particularly so. They like her back, particularly as if she uses her vampire charm. Contrary to myth, a vampire can't make you do anything against your will. But if you're already inclined in that direction, their voice and gaze can prod you along. This scared little girl wanted to be rescued, so it was easy for Cassandra to persuade her that we were rescuers. After a few minutes, she let Gabrielle out. I motioned Davis back. A hulking bodyguard is not the first thing a terrified kid needs to see as she comes out of her hiding place. According to the file, Gabrielle was 5. She was chubby with curly blonde hair and dark blue eyes and wore a nightgown covered in frolicking puppies. Or that's what it looked like. The gown was dusted with dirt, the front streaked from her tears. Hey there, I said, crouching down to her size. How about we get you some breakfast? I bet you're hungry. She nodded. Cassandra's going to take you in the bathroom to clean up, I said. I'll get your breakfast. Davis motioned that he was calling it in. I gestured that Sean shouldn't hurry. We needed to get as much from the girl as we could before an invading security team frightened her into silence. I found cereal in the cupboard and pulled out a box of Lucky Charms that was tucked at the back behind the healthier stuff. I poured a bowl and a glass of orange juice before Cassandra got Gabrielle to the table. Can you tell us what happened? I asked after she'd eaten a few mouthfuls. A man came, she said, from Mr. Nast. Mr. Nast? She nodded. The young one. The old one came once to see Lawson, but the young one comes a lot. He's nice. Mommy and Daddy like him, so they weren't mad even if it was past our bedtime. She means Sean, Davis said as he walked into the kitchen, phone still in hand. He's the executive in charge of their case. He comes by once a month, but he didn't send anyone last night. Easy enough for someone to say Sean had sent him, I said. Gabrielle, who'd been following the conversation, shook her head. Uh-huh. He has to know the secret word. I looked at David. It's a code, he said after a moment. The Dales trust Sean, only Sean. Anyone bringing a message from him has to use the right code. You're asking the wrong questions. He crouched beside Gabrielle. Tell me about that room you were in. It's for Lawson, isn't it? In case someone comes to get him. When she looked confused, Cassandra murmured. Her parents wouldn't tell her that. It would frighten her. She looked at the girl. Is it for storms, earthquakes? Gabrielle nodded. And your parents told you to go in it last night? Only you? It's supposed to be for me and Lawson, but Mr. Nash's men said they needed to take Lawson into the city. Mommy told them I was sleeping at my friend's house. Then she put me in a room and said when they were gone, I was supposed to come out and call the special number. What special number, hon? I asked. She took a dirty piece of paper from her pocket. In big, thick letters, it spelled out a phone number. I was supposed to call when it was quiet, she said, but I couldn't really tell if it was quiet, so I waited, and then I heard people in the house, so I waited some more, and then I dropped the flashlight and it broke, and I couldn't see, and the door wouldn't open, and... She took a deep hiccuping breath as tears trickled down her cheeks. She wiped them away. Mommy said if anything went wrong, not to worry because you come. We come? She nodded. She said when she didn't call today, someone would come. That's you. Cassandra looked at Davis. What exactly is the child there in agreement with the Nast? That the Dowds get lost until he's 18, Davis said. After that, they can continue to act as his family and guardians. So the Dowds built the hole for the children in case the Nast ever tried to take Lawson early. They were to hide in there and phone for help. Probably extended family. If the Dowds didn't make their daily check-in call, that person would come looking for the children. Except when someone from the cabal did come, saying they were from Sean, it caught the Dowds off guard. They couldn't hide Lawson in time, just Gabrielle. I'm supposed to tell you what happened, Gabrielle said. Then you can help Mommy and Daddy and Lawson. That's what we're going to do, Cassandra said.